Hello and welcome back to hardreset.info. In this video, I will show you how to improve battery life on Samsung Galaxy Tab S11. Let's begin. So, the improvement of battery life is somewhat tricky since there are many different systems that actually come here and eat your battery one by one. But probably the most prominent and the most annoying one to deal with is your display. It's kind of obvious to some people, but if you don't know, it's your screen that actually eats the most of your battery, not your CPU. So let's try to optimize our display just a little bit. But first, let's simply head into settings and enter display, because here we are going to change a couple of things. But let's actually start with the bottom. These things they didn't change anything battery related. However, we have something called screen timeout. As you can see, currently it is set to 10 minutes, and if you don't know, it basically means that after 10 minutes of inactivity, our tablet should automatically lock its screen, which is pretty cool and all. But what if I would, for example, leave my device and just go somewhere? Well, this means that my tablet here would still be turned on for 10 minutes, and only then it would automatically lock its screen, which basically means 10 minutes of battery usage that we actually didn't use. So all you want to do is you want to limit this to, for example, 1 or 2 minutes at max, or even better, we can set it to something very low, like 15 seconds, though this is pretty annoying to deal with. However, if we keep screen on while viewing on, this shouldn't really matter, because when you are actually looking at your tablet, you don't have such a short screen timeout. And generally speaking, the bigger the value here, the bigger the battery usage, so having it set up to something fairly low is very good. Then let's continue upwards. All of these settings don't really matter, but we have something called motion smoothness, and this is very cool part. As you can see, I'm currently set to standard, which is the thing that actually saves the most battery. Though, unfortunately, I do believe that by default you are set to adaptive, which sure gives you slightly smoother experience, kind of, but I do think that this animation here isn't really doing any justice, because let's be honest, many people actually don't really see the difference between 120 Hz on 60 Hz, especially on a tablet. I know that this is a very visible difference, for example on gaming monitors when you're a gamer, but when you're just scrolling through your tablet or watching videos, it doesn't really matter. And it's pretty important to note that this doesn't really mean that your tablet is running 120 Hz all the time, only sometimes. So having it set to standard really doesn't really change anything for your experience, but it does help you save battery tremendously, just because you are basically cutting in half your refresh rate, and then it just saves your battery. It's simple as that. Now we can go upwards and we have brightness and adaptive brightness. Now we can start with adaptive brightness, or actually no, let's start with brightness. It's pretty obvious, but I will just say it just in case, that the bigger the brightness, the bigger the battery usage. So if I will do something like this, I have now increased my battery usage by quite a lot, because now my Samsung S11 is blasting my face with brightness, and in order to do that, it needs a lot of battery. So having your brightness levels relatively slow does help you increase it. However, adaptive brightness is somewhat controversial. Like, personally, I like to have it disabled, just because I really like having 100% power of my brightness bar, and I do know that having it set to adaptive basically means that sometimes it will automatically increase itself, and sometimes it will automatically decrease itself, which for some people it's something you want to have, for others you don't want to have it. Once again, I'm going to advise you to keep that off, but if you like this feature, if you think it's actually pretty smart about adjusting your brightness, then you should keep it on. And finally, as a last setting inside display settings, we have our light mode, so we have light and dark mode. Now, many people don't know this, but most screens nowadays are OLED screens, meaning that they require more energy to display brighter pixels. So naturally, if we will do something like this, we have now decreased the battery usage quite a lot, just because now most of our pixels on our display are black or just darker. I'm going to go back to the light mode just because it's actually looking better on the camera itself, so once again I'm just doing it for the video. But if you really like the dark mode, you can have it on, but if you don't like the dark mode but you want to get benefits of it, then I guess you can go into dark mode settings, go into turn on as scheduled, and have it schedule automatically between sunset to sunrise or between custom hours that you have set up. For me it's 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I think this is a pretty good values, but it does help you save your battery. Just know that if you're going to set it to dark mode in the night when you're not using your tablet anyway, this doesn't really change anything. However, now we have successfully optimized the hell out of our display. What can we do next? Well, we can go into battery, and we can go into power saving mode. The only reason I didn't really included this at the beginning of the video is that many people don't really know what power saving does, and you will notice that it actually changes few things automatically, like the things we've been talking about. For example, decreasing the brightness, motion smoothness to standard, and dark mode with also little screen timeout, which is pretty cool. But it does one thing in performance here, and it's limiting CPU speed to 70%, which is incredibly useful, like very, very useful. However, having that enabled is quite not good. Well, technically you can have it enabled all the time, but then you are getting drawbacks of having low battery without actually having the low battery. And if you do have low battery, you usually forget about enabling power saving mode. So how can we fix that? Well, we don't. We just make something very simple in order to make sure that our power saving mode enables automatically with low battery. And this is where modes and routines come in. Now, the modes and routines is a very big rabbit hole of a topic, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but if you want to learn more about them, you can always watch my full tutorial on the routines on any Samsung device. It's a pretty cool video, I really like it. So, if you don't really understand what will happen, don't you worry, just follow my steps and you should be good to go. First, inside modes and routines, switch to the routines, not modes, this is very important, and then click plus icon. And now we are in the mode of creating routines. Under if, you want to scroll down a little and find battery level, which should be here under device. So battery level. And now we want to make sure that it's, for example, let's set it to, for example, 20%, and let's hit done. So now, this condition will automatically enable itself every time this condition is true. So every time our battery level drops below 20%, we are going to enable this routine. And what will happen when this routine enables? Well, we want to, you probably guessed it, just enable power saving mode. So let's turn it on, and now we can save it. So now we can set it to this green red color. Let's maybe give it this icon. Let's hit done. And now we have an automatic routine that will automatically enable our battery level, our power saving mode whenever our battery drops below 20%. Now, technically this is where you could leave it alone, but there is one simple thing you can do to increase the quality of life basically. Because with the current setup, our battery level will automatically enable itself even if we are charging our device, which isn't really needed. So how can we change that? Well, first let's go into edit mode, and now we want to add another action, but this time let's scroll all the way down, go into advanced options, and go into if else. Now this looks kind of scary and kind of complicated, but trust me, in reality it's very, very easy. Let's go into select action to get data, and the data we want to get is of course our charging status. So let's go. And this is also kind of scary, but we want to go into is and the value not charging. So let's go into hit done, and now we have another condition that basically checks if we are currently not charging. If we aren't charging, we want to add a new action. And of course, this is the power saving mode. We can enable it in the battery here. So power saving mode done. And also we can get rid of the original one. And in the else, we just don't do anything. So now let's save it. And let's simply check what is happening here. So whenever our battery drops below 20%, we want to check if we are currently charging. If we are not charging, we want to enable the power saving mode. However, if you have already figured it out that, hey, my phone is kind of dying, and you have plugged your charger into your tablet, then the power saving mode will automatically disable itself even if you are still below 20%. I know that this seems complicated and probably sounds complicated because I'm pretty bad at explaining stuff. I think so. But this basically increases the quality of life by incredible amounts and just makes it so you barely have to do anything. It will just automatically enable or disable itself without you even noticing it. And by the way, if you want to change the threshold here, you can always do that by going into edit, battery level, and then changing the battery level. So if I will set it to, for example, 30%, we can hit done and then save it. You will notice that now it automatically enable itself because we did dropped under the threshold. I'm kind of looking at the charger. Give me a moment. Okay, before I actually test this, I want to add one more thing because I kind of forgot about it. Let's go into edit. And in here, you want to go into else. We want to add action. We can once again go into battery, power saving, and now we want to turn it off. Let's hit save. And now let's look at our new battery level. So if we drop below 20%, I will change it to 30 in a moment. We want to check if we are charging. If we are not charging, we want to enable power saving, but if you are, we want to disable it. It's literally all we want to do. So now, if I will edit it, I will change the threshold to, for example, this 30% we had before. Let's hit done. And let's hit save. We can see that now our phone is basically, our tablet is screaming at us that, hey man, you're kind of low on the battery, maybe you want to charge it up. But just in case, we did enable the power saving for you. So now, if I would charge up my device here, this should basically automatically disable the routine, which isn't really happening. But okay, I actually know why it's not happening, and this is because we did something very funny. Let's go into our routine and let's go into is charging. So now if it is charging, we want to go and turn it off, but if it's not, we want to turn it on. I believe that this should fix it. Yep, exactly. So now we are first checking if we are charging because the else doesn't really have that much of a power here. So let's check it. Let's disable the charging. Then once again, it's not working properly. It's pretty hard to get it working, to be honest. Oh, we even have... Ooh, couldn't perform this action because another action is preventing it. That's pretty funny. To be honest, we could have just ignored that. Oh, I know, it's probably because of that. What I did here is kind of complicated, but I don't want to make this video too long. Basically, you probably want to have separate routines so they don't really fight each other. One for enabling it, one for disabling it, and then you should have it really done. But yeah, anyway, that's all for this video. If you want to, you can share a comment, maybe suggest some other changes that you can make to improve the battery life, and then you can, for example, maybe like and subscribe if you found the video useful. But anyway, that's all from me. Thanks for watching. Bye.